What's up and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod. New year, same us. This is Pat Sheehan, joined by my trusty co-host, Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how's the air in 2022?
2020 year 3, baby. We out here.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is still feeling that way. However, the pods do not reflect the tenor of those podcasts in 2020 when we were really scraping the bottom of the barrel for anything. Because we got a packed show today, man. We got the holiday recap show where we're just talking about everything that happened over the Christmas break, where we dropped our best songs and TV of the year. So go back and check those out. We'll be doing our best movies of 2021 in short order. And you can find all that content on youtube.com/nostalgiapod, nostalgiapod on Spotify and Apple. And if you're on Spotify, give us 5 stars, get that rating up, let people know about us. Dave, we're going to start in a familiar place because the last review we had of last year was Spider-Man No Way Home, a Marvel product. And now we're back with Marvel because Hawkeye wrapped up just a few days after our last podcast, the 6-episode miniseries on a not so popular Avenger, something that's addressed in the show. How did you feel? Was this more Falcon and the Winter Soldier for you, or did it reach that like Loki level MCU property for you?
There's not a chance in hell this reached the Loki high, my guy. Or WandaVision. Doesn't have the ambition of WandaVision, doesn't have the enjoyability of Loki to me. Now, I wouldn't peg it as low as Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just because Falcon and the Winter Soldier also had a greater ambition that thus led to more missed goals. Hawkeye there's just not a lot going on with Hawkeye. It's really simple, and to some people that's enough. But to me, this just felt like a lot of homework to me. And there's moments I like, there's characters I like, but overall, I didn't find this story, the as thin as it was, I didn't find this story that compelling.
Yeah, no. It's with a show like this, I think you could even say, sometimes people come to these sorts of shows just for the straight vibes. This wasn't even really a vibe show. Just was kind of like, we're going to give a little bit of fan service to those 5 Hawkeye heads, Jeremy Renner heads out there.
Matt Fraction readers.
Yeah. Then we're going to introduce Kate Bishop, and we're going to wipe our hands off, maybe throw a little Kingpin in here at the end, and we're good to go. I will say, obviously, getting some Florence Pugh in my life is never a bad thing, and really enjoy her Yelena performance. But a lot of this I found to be pretty uninteresting, and when you have a stacked cast like this, like when you just have Tony Dalton kind of around to like be like throw you off the scent of the bad guy, it's just kind of like the potential was there to do more, and they really just shot straight down the middle, as Hawkeye would do. So why don't you tell me more about like what didn't work for you specifically?
Well, I think if you just analyze how the 6 episodes of Hawkeye work, the storytelling, the story, the plot of Hawkeye is so secondary to what Marvel's true goals were with the series, which was to introduce us to Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop, which I expect to be a anchor for Marvel in the years to come, and also set up the Echo spinoff. And did they do the work to make Echo that interesting to justify a spinoff? I would say that's a resounding no. But they didn't care. That's just like, we'll just get it going to keep the content factory rolling, no supply chain issues at the MCU. And, Renner, Academy Award nominated actor, definitely is punched below his weight throughout his tenure in the MCU. That didn't really change in Hawkeye. Oh, he gets a little emotional at the plaque, talking to himself, to Natasha. Big deal. He doesn't even act in anything but one scene with Linda Cardellini. Linda Cardellini clearly was off on her own, banging this out in 2-3 days. Like, it just felt really bullet pointy to me. And the like wow moments, like, oh, there's Florence Pugh. I love Florence Pugh. Happy belated birthday to her, by the way. But like, she's blowing everyone away as
Oh
she
yeah.
does often, and doesn't really answer much, right? Like the Black Widow uh post credit scene, no acknowledgement of Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Valentina, the DeFontaine character. So I really don't know. The motivation seemed a little more unclear to me about just trying to avenge her sister, and then that kind of getting resolved a little neatly at the end there with her conversation with Clint. Whatever, but I just didn't think we had enough compelling story threads here. Vera Farmiga, like Tony Dalton, also equally wasted, just not asked to do much of anything.
Yeah. I agree with pretty much everything you're saying. It's it's really funny just to kind of think about the fact that they were basically finding any way that they could to get Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop into this universe, and this is what they came up with. Like, if it had even just been something with her and Florence Pugh, just kind of, trying to maybe even find Hawkeye together or something like that, or like simultaneous stories. I feel like it would have been more interesting to focus more on them than Renner in this. And I mean, I good for Renner. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's like just ready to be done with all this, and it seems like this is his like farewell. Finally, I don't blame him. He's put in more than enough time, like you said. Um, but it really just feels kind of unnecessary, and that's been what we've felt with a lot of these Marvel TV properties specifically. Just like, what are they ultimately adding to the overall MCU at this point? And besides No Way Home, Shang-Chi was, I think, a success, but uh, fell into the typical Marvel CGI fuckfest by the end. It's like,
Mm.
what really came out of 2021 for Marvel that you look at and you're like, okay, here we go. This is going to be like driving this next stage forward. You have a couple of good characters who are being set up, but the tentpole people are kind of up in the air. Even Tom Holland, will probably be back as Spider-Man, but his deal is up. They're gonna have to drop the
Mm.
bag for him. That's undecided. So what's really there for the MCU moving forward?
Florence Pugh's definitely there.
Yeah, that has to be it, right? It's got to
Yeah,
be her and Kate Bishop. Like,
yeah. Kate
yes,
Bishop. I mean, more people to come on the shows, like She-Hulk. Seems like She-Hulk could be a walk into the sunset for Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner. Similar to how this was Clint Barton's farewell and Jeremy Renner. But yeah, I mean, the bandied about stat the past few weeks. This 4 Marvel Disney Plus MCU shows from 2021, the runtime of those has surpassed the runtime of the entire Infinity Saga film slate. I would say the Infinity Saga accomplishes a lot more from a storytelling perspective, from a memorability perspective, from a filmmaking perspective, basically all the perspectives. And that part of that's just a movies to TV thing, but just the ambition is just not consistent with these shows right now. And like, I know some people are like, oh, I liked it just because it was, kind of straightforward. There was no CGI fuck fest. At the end, they were fighting with arrows, and that was kind of cool and fun and stuff. That's how Hawkeye is, how so Kate Bishop is. That's great. But I think a big problem with like this, again, this is a big adaptation from the famous Matt Fraction comic run, which is the most popular Hawkeye run. But I think a big issue with this plot being portrayed into the show is like the MCU viewer does not have much of a relationship to like the Ronin side of Clint Barton, because the Ronin side of Clint Barton is like 2.5 minutes in Avengers Endgame, right? Not Infinity War, Endgame. Yeah, like it's so quick. It's not there's no weight to it, right? Even the whole Barton family is like really cookie cutter as it is. So I just felt like that kind of doesn't work. And the other part of that comic is the tracksuit people, which I just feel are really unfulfilling villains as well, particularly like Kazi and his relationship with Echo. I just don't think works at all. They set up Kingpin to reintroduce, people from the Daredevil shows, just as we're getting Charlie Cox's cameo in No Way Home. But again, like, is anything with Kingpin that satisfying beyond just like, oh, look, there's Kingpin, he'll be back now. Just like, oh, there's Echo, she's getting her own show. Like, nothing is actually developed. It's just shown to us with like a flag planted to say, hey, we'll be back. Yeah, I just not impressed with it. And even like, did you find like this was that great of a holiday vibe? I thought it was a better holiday vibe than New York City vibe.
For sure.
This was not filmed in New York. They could have done a better job in making it feel more New York, in my opinion. Apart from like the ending stuff with the tree. I guess my favorite moment in the whole show is the fight Kate and Yelena have in like that office where you have like that dolly shot just rolling past the cubes as they're just fighting and tumbling over each other. That was really cool and well done. But other than that, I don't have much to take away from this in terms of like this as an entity, as a story. Like, yes, I'm looking forward to seeing more Kate Bishop. I think Haley Steinfeld's great, but like this as a story, I just thought it's just weak.
Yeah, I felt like it was decent holiday vibes. Definitely not that much of a New York City movie. And I think the moments I'll probably remember most are like the silly moments. Florence Pugh and Kate Bishop in the elevator,
good humor.
Florence Pugh talking about like the Kraft macaroni and cheese and how great that was, like that sort of thing. Also, the LARPing stuff like stood out. Was something that was like memorable and nice. But like, and I guess also the Echo being a disabled superhero, and the older Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner, a differently able superhero, I should say, dealing with that loss of that ability as well, and having come to grips with that. Like that sort of thing is like, I think those are solid moments from the show, things that they can point to and say we did that pretty well, or at least they get credit for. But yeah, I don't think there's much else to take away from this other than, okay, Kate Bishop's here. Like, Yelena is more involved now, and obviously moving forward is going to be, just thinking about it, like, is Florence Pugh and Tom Holland now the like Downey Chris Evans of this whole thing moving forward? Like, who's like that tent pole person that they're just like, all right, this is it.
It seems like they want Anthony Mackie to stick around as the new Captain America. So he kind of serves as like an older guard face, the way like Doctor Strange probably will, and Thor if he's around after the fourth one. So it's kind of a holding pattern. If you think about what movies have happened since Endgame, it's been a lot of new table setting with new people, or a lot of closing the books. Even No Way Home is more of a closing the book and a reset than anything else, right? Obviously, Black Widow's the same. So, I guess we'll see how ambitious, from a storytelling perspective, Doctor Strange gets come May. But I don't know. Like, it seems like we're at a crossroads. Like, I kind of feel like Guardians 3 in 2 years is the last Guardians movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
And Black Panther's at a different kind of crossroads, obviously, due to tragic circumstances. So there's inherently a lot going on, and a lot still to get going on. So I don't know. Maybe I think I'm most invested in whatever cosmic direction they go with, like the symbiote and Null and Kit Harington's Black Knight and shit like that, just because that could get like freaky and shit, So
yeah, I have two more questions before we wrap this up. First, Vincent D'Onofrio is Kingpin. Do you like him or not?
I like him in the Daredevil show. I've seen 2 of the 3 Daredevil seasons. He's good in that. It's slightly tweak of that original performance, but I think he's quite capable. Yeah.
Yeah, he's all right. Like he's not my. For some reason, I just look at him and I can't get past the criminal intent Vincent D'Onofrio, which I just thought was a terrible like actor. So it's like, I don't know, it's hard to get past that for me. Second question, this is where we'll wrap up. 4 MCU series coming out next year that are confirmed. We have Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, and Secret Invasion.
Right.
Which one are you most looking forward to?
Probably Moon Knight. Oscar Isaac. Moon Knight's kind of like the Marvel Batman, except he's even more like mentally deranged. If they have the balls to really take it in the Moon Knight direction per the source material, I think that's quite compelling. Miss Marvel is another person that is being set up to be a pillar moving forward. Secret Invasion feels like a bunch of wheels spinning. Could be cool. I don't know. And
Yeah.
She-Hulk, Tatiana Maslany, I do really like her. I think she's a really talented person. So looking forward to see what she does as well. So I'd say, yeah, She-Hulk and Moon Knight are the two that interest me the most.
See, I think Moon Knight is definitely the one I'm most looking forward to, but I think Secret Invasion, just because the cast that's been confirmed, we don't know what their roles are, but we obviously have Samuel L., Ben Mendelsohn, and Kobe Smulders coming back. But then you have Kingsley Ben-Adir as the lead villain, Olivia Colman, Emilia Clarke, Christopher McDonald, a couple of
that is exciting.
Names that you're like, how are they going to tie them in?
Yeah,
so there's some exciting
some
stuff.
scroll fun going on there. Yeah. So that'll be cool, hopefully.
I'm still convinced that Doctor Strange was maybe a scroll in No Way Home, because the way he was acting just didn't make any sense. I was talking with a friend of the pod, Sean McKenna, about that. We're both perplexed. But anyways, why don't we stay on Disney Plus and move on to something that it seems has gotten a little bit more love. The book of Boba Fett, which premiered this past Wednesday. No more Friday drops, at least for right now, for Disney Plus Star Wars shows. So back to the Wednesdays, just like the MCU. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I like stuff in the middle of the week. There's less stuff in the middle of the week. Take it over, you know. Own Wednesday the way HBO owns Sunday night. You know, it's not a bad call. Disney did not waste any time. Hawkeye finale next week. Here's Boba Fett. No breaks. And I bet after Boba Fett ends, we're getting Miss Marvel or something from Marvel's side of things. You know, I'm
sure
they're gonna flood the zone. But yeah, I like the Wednesday call, no question.
Yeah, I do too. And we knew this was coming. Teaser at the end of Mandalorian season 2. Tamir Morrison and Ming-Na Wen playing Fennec Shand. Obviously, Tamir Morrison is Boba Fett. Dave, just like, where were you at going into this? Were you excited for this? Was this something you wanted? Something you had even considered prior to the teaser? Boba Fett, where are you at?
Yeah, well, it's ultimately the culmination of a lot of things that had not been fulfilled. Lest we forget the Josh Trank Boba Fett spin-off film that died on the vine because Josh Trank and also Lucasfilm, you know. But I'm sure this had to be on the mind of many as soon as we actually saw Boba Fett in the flesh, removed from the Sarlacc pit, in fact alive. Once we saw that in Mandalorian season 2, this was definitely on the table. I really liked how they showed it to us at the end of Mandalorian season 2 as a stinger scene, and they had not announced it like the week before at that Disney Investor Day at the end of 2020. I thought it was a really cool way to introduce the show as like a spin-off of the Mandalorian while we wait for the next proper Mandalorian season. That being said, you know, I think from a storytelling perspective, it's probably not going to be as ambitious and probably as interesting as something like The Mandalorian or even maybe Kenobi, I don't know. But you're finally seeing Boba Fett be a protagonist, something that has only been done even briefly in comic form. You know, Boba Fett is someone who got so popular and so famous because he looked fucking cool with his armor, not because he had anything to say. He has 4 lines and 6.5 minutes of screen time in the original trilogy. Boba Fett is truly a cipher, and that is no more. Tamir Morrison reprising his role, obviously, with Mandalorian season 2, Jango Fett, the clones, now Boba Fett. Here he is. So I don't think there's I wouldn't say there's a lot riding on it. I really wouldn't, because it's just Boba Fett. You know, he's we I think we got it. Like there's nothing to learn. There's nothing to get. It's just kind of having fun seeing Boba Fett be Boba Fett, I think.
Yeah, just a mini series telling I think a small story. It's supposed to be 7 episodes, I believe, 7
That's
or 8. Right. So it's not going to be. It doesn't seem like it's going to be something that's ongoing. I think there's a piece of this story that will most likely be continued in other stories moving forward, at least written in, and that's Fennec Shand. Just seems like a character that is gaining a lot of traction, a lot of fan love so far.
Was in the Bad Batch earlier this year or 2021.
So definitely going to be seeing more of her. But what do you think of just this premiere in general? Did you like it? Were you pleased with what we got?
Yeah, I liked it. Again, I don't have like high demands for the show though. Like seeing Boba Fett burst out of the Sarlacc pit, something people have thought about for decades. Cool to see it manifest. Gotta be honest, you know.
And Oswald called this on an episode of Parks and Rec. Pretty great clip. Look that up.
He did. Yes, that's being widely circulated. And I am quite interested in seeing him with the Tuskens. Notably, when we see him revealed at the end of Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1, armorless Boba wielding a gaffy stick, suggesting that he has been accepted in some manner into Tusken culture. I like the nod we got in the premiere of Season 2 to Tusken culture as well. So just kind of seeing Boba Fett interact with the Tusken Raiders, I think, is going to be pretty cool. And you know, the present day timeline taking over Jabba and Bib's criminal enterprise, I think that probably has more potential as for fans of Star Wars lore, for people looking for those Easter eggs and references, because I think we could maybe see a Crimson Dawn Kira reference a la Solo, or even something even more hardcore like Prince Zizor and Black Sun and stuff from Shadows of the Empire. So, you know, we're not going to get anything groundbreaking, but yeah, again, for the lore heads, I think that there'll be some fun stuff to be with. You know, on the other hand, it's more time on Tatooine. I think we know Tatooine for the most part at this point.
Hate sand, Dave. Just hate it.
Gets everywhere.
You know, I was a lot less interested in the stuff with the Tusken Raiders than I was with the, seeing him and Fennec walking around, meeting the different people on Tatooine, interacting with them, kind of seeing what the setup is going to be. I think, I guess what I'm hoping is that the Tusken Raider stuff is less and less as we go forward, and that storyline gets resolved, and we're more in the present. Because I think the criminal enterprise of it all is much more interesting to me, and seeing how those like relationships interplay. Seems like stuff with the mayor of that city on Tatooine. I'm forgetting the name of it.
Mos Espa, brother.
Yes, Mos Espa.
That's Watto's. That's Watto's hometown. I wonder if we can see old
Watto. Seems like that's going to be something that we're spending some time with, or that's going to be a main point of contention. But yeah, I think the scene that probably stood out most to me, outside of them just sitting in Jabba's palace and having people come and offer them gifts, was Ming Na Wen just fucking that chase scene with the assassins was just awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Fennec as a character just continues to grow in this story. It feels like the most exciting thread that will have a lasting effect from this mini series for me. But anything else that you're excited for or expect to see?
Yeah, it'd be cool to see Crimson Dawn. It'd be less cool if you're not seeing Amelia Clark's Kira, though, I suppose. In a sense, this show is set up for a long runway, because the present day timeline, you're looking at 5 years after Return of the Jedi, meaning you have 25 years till Force Awakens. It's a lot of time to do criminal underworld stuff, and it doesn't seem like Boba's going to be bounty hunting all that much anymore. But I think that side of Star Wars has long been something underexplored: the underworld, the smugglers, the bounty hunters, the scum and villainy of it all. That it's a little grimier and darker, and thus probably not as appealing to Lucasfilm to make. But if they went there, it would be cool. It is nice to see a mainstream property led by two older actors. Temuera Morrison's 60, Ming-Na Wen is 58. and they are our two leads here.
She's that old?
She is. Yeah, still crushing it. And actually, another thing I think is exciting: the the Book of Boba Fett trailer only features material from episode 1 of the show. So sounds like they're going to be hiding some stuff. And in general, just that unknown is cool. Robert Rodriguez, co-showrunner, following some directing he did on season 2. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to, seeing what they do. This was filmed pandemic, end of 2020, but because they film with the stagecraft technology in Manhattan Beach, they can nail it. So I don't again I don't think it's going to be anything too groundbreaking, but I just think it'll be fun. And I think this is something I find more fulfilling, even if it's lower stakes, in something like Hawkeye, which I just feel way less invested in. So I guess it depends what you want.
Certainly, we'll be talking about the Book of Boba Fett when we wrap up the season in February. But for now, let's move off Disney Plus and on to HBO, where we're talking Insecure, series finale. Not even season finale, series finale. No more Insecure in our lives anymore. And Dave, I think we probably have to start at the end. So spoilers from here on out. Are you pleased with where the show ended up with Issa and Lawrence back together?
I'm not pleased per se, but we all saw it coming so long ago at this point that it's tough to be too frustrated with it. I thought it was handled well. And overall, I thought the conclusion of the series was done quite well in how it treated, all its characters, how it treated most of the ensemble. So I still found it pretty satisfying because I'm more invested in the Issa and Molly friendship than I am in the Issa and Lawrence will they won't they stuff. I thought the Issa and Molly stuff was done well, so I was overall satisfied. But yeah, fucking Lawrence, man, he never went away.
Yeah. I just want to say I agree with what you're saying. I think I thought for a second the show was not going to go there, and I was actually kind of excited. Apparently, they recorded 3 different endings to the finale, and chose to go with this one. So I'm interested what those other 2 were. I'm sure there's one where she ends up with Daniel, but right. I had a friend who saw the finale before I did, and they asked like, "Oh, so like, what do you think happens?" And I was like, hard to say. I just hope her and Molly are like in a good place when it ends. Like that's like the only thing I really care about is their relationship in this show. And the friend was really surprised because he was like, "Oh man, I really was more invested in who she was going to end up with," which I never really found myself that invested in the show because it was just it felt like it was spinning its wheels at times. Like Lawrence was always in the background, and even though Issa had these other guys who had a lot going on or seemed like good fits for her, it was always kind of coming back to him, and the show kind of felt like that's where it was destined.
He's inconsistent.
But I think ultimately I didn't feel super satisfied because I was hoping that, seeing all these other characters grow, Molly, overcome some of her insecurities, some of her issues, Kelly, getting sober and then becoming a mom, or at least becoming pregnant. You saw some characters move in really positive directions, and Issa D just kind of ends up becoming more successful at her job and back with the same guy she was with. I don't know. Well, what do I take away from that?
Yeah. When I was seeing like that kind of like it was like dream sequency there at the end, like her potential future. I thought they kind of made that like quite muddy. It's like you don't really know like what is actually happening, what's actually progressing, and what isn't, because there is a bit of like unannounced time skips for the most part throughout these last few episodes. But I guess just for me, it's like it's a really successful, really important, really notable show that I think is going to leave a lasting impact. It's like the first show of its kind, really, to portray Black millennials, Black millennial women specifically. So it's really notable for that. I think all the characters definitely stand the test of time, especially Molly, Yvonne Orji, just really awesome on this show. And I think like the ensemble, that's like being around the ensemble so much. There's some moments towards the end of the season 5 finale that I really enjoyed. That second to last episode when they have I believe it's the going away party.
Yeah,
for Tiffany and Derek. Yeah, and then all the dudes are kind of like just shooting the shit with each other, talking about food and stuff. Like you see Dro come back and stuff. Yep. Like I thought that was really satisfying just seeing them all. Like,
it was
like that. I think you get a lot of good closure with the Issa, Tiffany, Kelly, Molly friendship as well. So I think that they do a lot of good payoff, and I think you're right though. If anything, if anyone is not paid off as well as perhaps they deserve to be, it is Issa, and I think that they kind of stayed consistent to how Issa was characterized throughout the run of the show, and that she was up and down.
Yep. Yeah.
So in a sense, it's not out of character, I guess.
Yeah, and I think if anything, though, there's probably 3, maybe 4 people who are going to come out of this show and just be in our lives for the next decade plus. Issa Rae, obviously, already getting the bag, creating more shows, more content.
Big producer now.
Yeah, she's a superstar. As you mentioned, Yvonne Orji, I think, is probably the best performer in the show. I'd say probably the best actor. She also has done some stand-up, which is pretty good, and just seems like she's going to be around for a while. Jay Ellis, though, didn't really love Lawrence on the show. Beloved actor who I think is going to be getting a lot more opportunities.
He's going to be in Top Gun too once that finally comes out.
And then, of course, Natasha Rothwell, who I think we've seen already in some things, but seems destined to kind of be in that, like, I'm forgetting the actress's name, which is probably not a good sign for this comparison, but like Fat Amy. Gosh, I feel like she's in that like Zach Galifianakis like style where she's going to be like that comic relief in movies that pops up, might have a few features, but
Rebel Wilson, that kind of stuff.
Yes, Rebel Wilson. Yes, where they'll be around and kind of supporting role in a lot of like comedies moving forward. So just a real pleasure to watch these 5 seasons. I think we came onto it a little late, but
we did.
Glad that we've stuck with it. And if you haven't watched it and you care about Black stories, dating, or just kind of the experience, I think, of a lot of millennials, like you said, Dave, this is a good show to tune into and very bingeable, I'd say. So
yeah, of course, and like it has a lot of hallmarks that have been remarked upon. We've talked about before. Baller soundtrack. Loved the Brent Faiyaz Gravity drop in the finale, my number 2 song of 2021. Incredible LA show. I like how you kind of saw some of the sights and sounds at the end there on that drive. Again, just some more closure. And yeah, I think another thing to watch, the Insecure Writers Room. I would not be shocked to see people come out of this writers room and make great stuff in the future as in bigger roles. So that's also something to watch.
Absolutely. Also, Larry Wilmore, very quietly, has been a great producer of Black shows and content. Just kind of like to see where he's come from as a creator has just been really cool to watch over the last couple of years. So shout out to Issa, shout out to the rest of the cast. Pleasure to watch all this. Let's move off TV though, Dave, and onto the big screen. We're gonna stay on HBO because they also dropped right before Christmas The Matrix Resurrections. Dave, I had never watched the Matrix movie straight through. I'd seen bits and parts on cable.
Don't say that, they're all gonna leave.
So I ended up watching the original trilogy and then Resurrections. I have some thoughts, but were you a Matrix fan like right from the get-go when it came out?
That's a good question. So I'd seen everything already, and I did a full rewatch before Resurrections, including for the first time watching the Animatrix, which is also on HBO Max. And funny enough, I had not really been a Matrix fan as a kid. Like when it came out, I was young, but I was a Star Wars kid. I was a Lord of the Rings kid. Like Matrix just didn't really ever capture my attention. as a kid, coming out when I was a kid. So I didn't really latch on to it till like I went to college and like just had grown up a little bit more. But I mean, the first Matrix movie is certified classic. Incredible, holds up so well. It's so fucking good. And I'm really happy that I'd done the rewatch leading into Resurrections. I feel like you appreciate more things about Resurrection, or at least what's attempting to do if you were fresher on what had come before. And on the other hand, that might be a detriment to you if you don't really remember what had happened before and then watch Resurrections. But yeah, I really like the first one. I think Reloaded is an incredible action film. And, Revolutions, you're kind of lost in the sauce a little bit. The universe and the rules of it kind of muddy, but I still find it really enjoyable. And I look back on the whole trilogy fondly, just because it's an original creation with such a sense of style and place. And I mean, at the end of the day, the first Matrix is cool as fucking shit. Like the looks and the glasses, the black. Then how the Matrix itself has like the green hue and yet looks more lifelike than all the scenes set in the real world. Like there's so much to appreciate, I think, about the first one in particular, of course, which still stands up today.
Yeah, the first Matrix, my first time watching through, really stands out. I think the story was surprising a little bit, kind of boiling down to like true love being the thing that helped Neo unlock his powers. Feels a bit corny, but whatever, it's fine. That's kind of how a lot of these stories really go. But I think the first one is great. Like you said, Reloaded, probably my favorite action scene from the whole thing is that highway chase fight. Just like
you cannot touch that scene.
Yes, so like all-time scene. And then Revolutions, man. Like you take the things that really work well in the first two, and you're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna put Morpheus on the side and put like Neo and Trinity together in like 3 scenes, and then it's just gonna be like robot squids everywhere. And like I was like,
a lot of Zion.
Yeah, a lot of Zion. Neo loses his eyesight, like it's just, or his physical eyesight, but can see the Matrix. It's a very bizarre thing. I think that. And then that final battle between Neo and Agent Smith is just not as satisfying as you'd hope it would be. But anyways, brings us to Resurrections. Were you in 2021, Dave, like, I need a Matrix reboot?
It's funny you say that. If you recall, on youtube.com/nostalgiapod, we discussed the first rumblings of a Matrix 4 being in development way back in 2017. At that time, Michael B. Jordan was attached to play, was it Morpheus' son, another young Morpheus, whatever it was at the time. Zach Penn had been attached, making that script. He is not involved in the Matrix Resurrections. And we had said at the time that there's potential there. Need to know a little bit more about what they're trying to achieve. I wasn't necessarily clamoring for more Matrix, but I'm not opposed to it either, because it's one of those things where once you've made a Matrix Revolutions, it's okay to make more because you'll probably do better. So, I don't mind. And nothing can sully the Matrix 1 just the way nothing sullies Jurassic Park or Empire Strikes Back. Like, the classics are still the classics, and even if the sequels don't live up or don't all the way live up to what started it, it's okay, right? So I was interested in it. And I think another part of that too is the Wachowskis as filmmakers march to the beat of their own drums. Resurrections, just Lana this time. Lily's not involved. But Wachowskis, for better and for worse, singular filmmakers that have a point of view, have a style, all that, right? Sometimes manifest in an amazing way, like in Speed Racer. Other times not so much, like in Jupiter Ascending. So you take the good and the bad. So I was still, compelled, because again, I love the first one so much. And like, I think that the DNA of the first one, right? Like the action, so indebted to Hong Kong cinema and the aesthetics again. Like there's just a lot of things I'm really interested in, and I didn't really care that like the red pill has been largely co-opted into different meanings nowadays
Mhm.
culturally on the internet and things like that since the first film came out. But I was still having an open mind about Resurrections, and definitely did not expect Resurrections to be what it is, which is definitively not Star Wars: The Force Awakens, definitively not Jurassic World. It is not that kind of pseudo reboot type sequel. It is really anything but.
Yeah. I think what made me most interested in this was the Keanu Reeves like renaissance of late.
Right, of course.
Obviously the John Wick star, just someone who went from being very lambasted, and even if you watch the original Matrix trilogy, you kind of see why he got some of that. It's a lot of like, oh, or
Yeah.
Morpheus, like that sort of acting where you're like, it's maybe not the most nuanced line reading per se. But as he's aged and kind of come back into acting and in high profile roles, he really seems to have found this style that it really works for him. And I was like, let's see what he can do playing older Neo. And I think he's still pretty good in this. I didn't necessarily love the movie, but I also thought it was better than, it's probably like tied for second, I'd say, with Reloaded. It's up there.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I liked most about it was the first hour where you have Neo.
Totally.
Yeah, you have Neo, who's been red pill or red pilled.
Blue pilled.
Blue pilled. Sorry, blue pilled. Neo's been blue pilled. He's in this world where the Matrix was this video game he designed, and he has some sort of psychotic disorder, and he's talking with Neil Patrick Harris as his psychiatrist, who's kind of helping him understand like all of that was just this psychosis you were in, and this is reality, and blah blah blah. And at him trying to figure out like what the Matrix actually was for him, and seeing Trinity, who's now named Tiffany, and making sense of why he feels like he knows this person. Like that all was like so much more interesting to me. You get so much more Abdul Abdul Mateen the second,
yes,
as Agent Smith turned Morpheus 2 of some sort.
A Morpheus program, not the actual human Morpheus.
And just looking cool as shit in every single scene he's in. And like you also get Jessica Henwick as Bugs with her blue hair, just killing it. Like that first hour is really, really great. And then I think it kind of devolves a little bit in the second hour and 20 minutes or so. But really, I enjoyed this as a part 4 to the story. And even though there's some time off, I think there's some really nice touches to it, really well told. So overall, pretty satisfied. Maybe didn't love it, but was satisfied. Is that how you felt as well?
Yeah, so I think what you say is right, that the beginning of Resurrections is really superior to the second half because that's where the most interesting things are going on. Notably that it's a meta deconstruction of the Matrix as a franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lana Wachowski being like, well, Warner Brothers was going to make it with or without me, so they're going to make it with me. But I'm not going to make what they thought I was going to make.
Yeah.
And it kind of presents this really interesting, I think, catch-all thing where it's like film fans, critics, we appreciate something so bold, like that kind of idea of making a movie like that, right? And it largely butts heads with what fans want, or many fans want, which is to be in more Matrix, a la Jurassic World and The Force Awakens. Now, where I think there is some criticism to be laid is where you get to the second part of the film, and Matrix Resurrections, not shot on film like the first one, shot digitally. The action just doesn't hold much of a candle to the action of Reloaded, and especially the first film. And that's inherently a bit of a problem from a watchability standpoint, from an entertainment standpoint. Watch the dojo scene in the first Matrix film. It's just an absolute classic scene.
Yep.
Watch the remix dojo scene, which I think narratively was cool in Resurrection, but watch the actual scene. It's just not as compelling as action. The camera is a lot more zoomed in. We don't get those wide shots of the whole dojo, seeing Neo and Morpheus looking at each other. It's not made as in an appealing way. And whether that's also part of the meta commentary, whether that's part of the deconstruction to make a Matrix movie with mediocre action, it doesn't make the movie enjoyable. So, and I wasn't, bored or anything. It's not like it's shit, but it's maybe an instance of taking that a little too far, I think, for the movie side of things. So I think the other part of that is like a lot of the action outside towards even further in the end of the film when we're like in San Francisco and stuff, I was like really dark, and kind of hard to see. And I saw this in the theater. I didn't watch it on HBO Max, but it was still kind of like, yeah, this is a little like harder to track. And like, it's kind of there. It's kind of still Matrix action, but it's not, again, it's not like the first film. So I think that's kind of where like, the good and the bad of this film meet, where it's still a messy Wachowski film at the end of the day, but is it thematically bold, and I just can't help but appreciate all of that.
Yeah, the meta context of it all is really, really well done, and I think cleverly told. And I really appreciated all of that, and I think it even makes you kind of look at the Matrix and yourself as a watcher of the Matrix a little differently. Like the neologist, I forgot what that character's name was, but I thought that was like a really funny part because
Right.
even just before this, I watched a couple of the movies with my fiance, and she immediately went and like read all these articles about, or theories about the thing, and I was like, this is something fans did, where they like wrote papers and like theological papers about all this.
There's so much great scholarship on the Matrix, video essays, all that. It really is a really compelling thematic text.
And I just really thought it was clever to have it be this video game that Neo feels so much more like it, like real life, and having to like seeing the way that him taking the blue pill is like
right,
making him like a zombie, so to speak. I just thought that was all really well done. The second half, I agree. I think the like swarming feature that they kind of mentioned, how that's so much worse, actually really detracted. Whereas like that fight in Reloaded with Agent Smith and they're swarming, the CGI in that, looking back, would be so much better to be like redone now, but it was still like pretty cool because you basically see like Neo as like a leveled up fighter, kung fu artist.
The one.
And in this, it's really just like it's just like hard to like kind of tell what's going on in a lot of scenes. Like there's a part where Bugs is like in a car being swarmed, and it's like I don't even really know like who's in the car with her. It's very like confusing at points. And then it kind of ends with them on that rooftop, which I didn't really find to be a super satisfying ending between Neo and Trinity. And pretty much, I don't know if this is them, trying to play down Neo's abilities at this point, because it seems like obviously Trinity is now the master of the Matrix by the end of the movie, as opposed to Neo. He really was just doing a lot of the like shooting whatever energy out of his hands move. And that seemed
he never uses a gun, quite notably, in this movie.
Yeah. And so it's it's a little different, and I agree that the action is just not nearly as compelling as in past ones, but my expectations going into this weren't super high. I didn't really know what to expect from this, and I was still pleasantly surprised. I think some of the characters that were introduced, Morpheus as the program Morpheus, and Bugs, Jessica Henwick especially, were great. I've also been seeing a lot of people praising, or at least like making note, that Priyanka Chopra Jonas was in this as
adult Sati.
Yes, which I thought was kind of a nice touch. I expect to see more of her if they make more of these moving forward.
Yeah.
What did you think about her? Any thoughts?
She doesn't have a whole lot to really do, just kind of exposition-y, monologue-y stuff. I was actually more interested in seeing old Niobe as J.D. Pinkett Smith, and just seeing like how they've rebuilt Zion as in a new place, Io, and kind of seeing like the technological advancements. Right, there are now some gray areas with the Matrix. There are machines that sympathize with the humans in the real world, and programs can be manifested into the real world, and you see them doing things. And that's how we can still kind of have a Morpheus figure throughout the whole film, because you can still see Yahya Abdul-Mateen in both settings, right? I think that all that's kind of like cool for the lore and stuff. Like, hey, they're not eating gruel anymore. That's great. Good for you guys. Keep up the fight. You know, I like seeing the Merovingian actually come back in that middle fight where they first fight Jonathan Groff Smith. Yeah, just seeing the Merovingian kind of like bully pulpit more like themes, and like he's really like saying stuff about the sequelization and franchise nature of Hollywood, about how like everything sucks now and it used to be so much better back then. Like he's really like just nailing the themes of the first half Resurrections home via his monologue. And it's cool to see that character do that, because it makes sense for his character in the story to also be having that kind of point of view. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. I also thought this was a good look for Jonathan Groff, who I thought played the new Agent Smith pretty well, and you know we appreciate him as a performer. So I'm glad to see him getting some bigger, meatier roles for sure. Any other thoughts on actors?
I guess the other question would be, our new manifestation of the architect figure is the analyst, played by Neil Patrick Harris. Definitely a kind of off-type bit of casting. Even Groff, to a certain extent, is a little bit off-type for this, but he handled himself well. But yeah, how'd you feel about NPH? I think the analyst character itself, I think, was handled quite well. And because, again, he's like kind of like in the beginning pointing all these logical questions back at Neo as he's trying to keep him controlled, keep him blue-pilled, right? But how'd you like actually seeing NPH be the performer for that?
He's been so up and down for me in the movies he's been in. You know, something like Gone Girl comes to mind, where I really don't like his performance in that movie, although I really like the movie in general. I thought he was actually really great as the analyst in this. I do feel like the analyst so powerful that, you know, at the end when Trinity and Neo come to just like, you know, kick his jaw off his face and stuff like that, it's a little bit like, I don't know if that totally works for me. But I think up until that point, he's like super menacing and just like he's a really like aggravating villain, and that's exactly how you should want your villains to be. So I thought he was good. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree exactly with that. The other cool thing I noticed is that most people probably don't notice this, but in the Matrix, Trinity's husband is played by Chad Stahelski, which is obviously awesome for the many connections Chad Stahelski has to Keanu as the director of John Wick, but also as the original stunt double for Neo in the Matrix. Chad Stahelski really coming full circle in Hollywood in the Matrix. So cool to see him just have that role, being a Chad.
I was gonna say naming him Chad in that Matrix is really, really funny. Good touch. So if you're a fan of the Matrix trilogy, you obviously have to watch this. And even if you're not, I think you could probably watch and enjoy. But some parts are going to be left, not make sense to you. Anyways, Dave, why don't we move off of HBO and onto Amazon now? Because right around Christmas, we got Aaron Sorkin's newest movie, Being the Ricardos. Nicole Kidman playing Lucille Ball. You know, just a absolute ginormous character. I'm not sure the word I was looking for there.
Icon of comedy.
Icon, yeah.
In the 20th century.
You know, you also have Javier Bardem playing Ricky Ricardo.
Desi Arnaz in real life.
Desi Arnaz, sorry. So a lot of hype for this. Obviously, Aaron Sorkin, he's been working Trial of Chicago 7 last year. Did you like Being the Ricardos?
Important to note, too, Sorkin really has been working. Being the Ricardos was announced and filmed in 2021 and released in 2021. Very impressive. I respect that grind. I did not really like Being the Ricardos that much. I certainly like it less than Trial of Chicago 7 and Molly's Game, Sorkin's other two directorial efforts. And I think what decisions are made in terms of how Being the Ricardos is structured definitely highlight the shortcomings that Sorkin has as a director when compared to his feats as a writer. So I I thought it was okay, but I didn't really like it too much.
It's very Sorkin, and that means that it's inherently watchable, and inherently the dialogue and the just the interactions are so fast paced and catchy that you're going to, I think, be able to get through the movie. But I do feel like this is maybe mm, my least favorite Sorkin film, and probably just thing in general. I guess probably up there with the Newsroom, especially the later seasons of it that that he's put out in probably the last decade or so. I guess it might be even more than a decade for the Newsroom. I think about it.
Yeah, 2012,
But
I think. Yeah.
yeah, but I think I also just felt like Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem were a bit miscast, and I I don't know if I can necessarily put my finger on it. I think one, Nicole Kidman doesn't totally look like Lucille Ball to me, and in her wig, just kind of like looked a little bit like not. It looked like she was Nicole Kidman wearing a wig. I guess a lot of the time. Javier Bardem also looks nothing like Desi Arnaz,
Yeah.
which was just kind of like, I get that they wanted an actor who could, go toe to toe with Kidman, also that had some Hispanic background.
Yeah. Notably not
But
Cuban, though. He's Spanish.
yes, exactly, and just it didn't really work for me. That being said, still a watchable movie, but just like how just it really was not my favorite. Tell me more about the structural critiques you have.
Yeah. Well, just to follow up on what you just said there, I don't really have like a huge relationship with Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Like, I Love Lucy came on. I was too young for my parents. Like my parents were too little. You know, they saw it as syndication years later. So it's definitely pretty far removed culturally. So I didn't really have much of a relationship with it. But yeah, like no one would claim Nicole Kidman has like slapstick comedy chops, right?
Yeah, no.
She's good at mimicking things. She's a great actress, but not exactly her strength. So it's not the perfect analog. But yeah, I think structurally, like there's just a lot of easy stuff right here, right? It's a lot of flashbacks, a lot of back and forth on our timeline here. It just makes it messy. I think the testimonial stuff with like people on the staff in the writers' room played by different actors as like their older selves in the future, telling the story back to us, completely superfluous and unnecessary. And I think this makes it more confusing. Shouldn't be confusing, right? Like we have in the basic structure made a lot of sense, right? The 1 week of filming from table read to shooting an episode of I Love Lucy were set in 52, season 2 of the series. That's great. And not that you can't have some flashbacks, obviously, to color in a lot of these relationships here, but I just think you just had too much going on. It's just too messy, and kind of the forward momentum is just often lost.
Yeah. If you think about Trial of the Chicago 7, he did a lot of very similar type things where, the trial's happening, then they cut back to planning before the protest, and then they cut back to the trial, and then they cut to this other part. That might be, during the trial, but like at night, something like that. So there's a lot of like jumping around and Sorkin things, and he likes to do like the time sensitive things. You think about Jobs, which is a movie I actually watched on a plane recently. Really, just I think that's so much better than something like this. But
notably, Danny Boyle directed it, not Sorkin himself.
But you think about Sorkin's writing in that, it's like, oh, there's an hour before this presentation for Apple, or an hour before this presentation for whatever the other company was. So he likes those time sensitive things. I agree. It starts off with the writers as older people, and I thought, oh, okay, this is going to be kind of something that will be like an anchor to the narrative of it. No, just kind of like pops in every once in a while to make random comments or drop like a funny critique, but it's super just like thrown in there and doesn't really add much. And then the jumping around, showing their relationship and how they came together and what they were doing. I found that stuff pretty interesting, but I feel like you could have done that as like the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then put us into this like 1 week before this episode comes out type of thing. And it would have made a lot more sense and just me. I think that's a really good point. Any other narrative critiques that you had of it?
No, I think that's
Structural
really it.
critiques?
Um,
Yeah.
on the other hand, I liked how it started with the table read. It's a great introduction to
Mm,
all the writers and really the supporting cast of the film. I thought that was an effective way, give everyone some quick lines, show everyone's face in a way Sorkin can do it, in terms of the back and forth dialogue that he's so strong at. And later on, we even get the classic walk and talk as Desi's
yeah.
leading them backstage. It's like, and at the end, we have the rousing, heartfelt, emotional Sorkin speech. There's a lot of the trademarks here, but he needs someone to reel him in to uplift the overall package.
Yeah. I completely agree that you get some of this good stuff, but some of the scenes that really worked for me were scenes that weren't even between Bardem and Kidman. It was
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman with what's her name? I just lost it. Nina Arianda
Yeah.
as Vivian Vance.
Right.
They're back and forth, where she finally confronts uh Lucille. Vivian confronts Lucille Ball about sending uh food to her because she's on a diet and she wants to look good, and Lucille says, well, most women in America look like you, and that's what they relate to on the show. And like that dynamic I thought was really great, and just the different levels of their friendship and the work relationship they had I thought came across really well there. And I found those kind of scenes a lot more compelling. Or even Kidman with J.K. Simmons talking about like how to keep Desi happy and how to like save the marriage. I thought was a lot more compelling than some of the stuff between Lucille and Desi necessarily on screen. Did you feel that way as well?
Yeah, totally. I thought Arianda, JK, as well as Ali Shakwa, I think the notable
Mm.
supporting players. I really liked Shakwa's talk with Kidman about like the responsibilities and just different differences that female writers on a comedy have and like what their responsibilities are in terms of how they frame the story and stuff. I thought that kind of scene, that kind of theme, really nice to see espoused in that kind of intelligent way. But the movie maybe could have built up to some of this stuff if we're not like doing all this back and forth that just kind of distracting. So yeah, there's a lot of those moments I like, and I think the greater cast is nice. Like Tony Hale, I kind of liked him as like the head writer there. His flippant or his attack at the kind of flippant request to give up his EP credit and stuff. I really like that. So there's some good moments, and it should be a compelling story here. You have like really two larger in life lead characters, but
Yeah.
it's just doesn't quite come together as well as it should because you can see all the parts starting to click, but they just don't click all the way.
Yeah, another classic Sorkin trope in his movies is like taking something small that's symbolic and making it a focal point for the main character to just obsess over, and then having it come to fruition at the end. And in this one, it was Lucille wanting something specific to be done in this scene. It was oh man, what was the choice? Because they didn't
Oh,
they
the
didn't want
flowers.
Lucille. Yeah, the flowers. I think they didn't want Lucille to look. Oh no, how she wouldn't know it was Desi. So
Hmm.
like, oh, you really think she's that stupid where she wouldn't know it's her own husband, and she keeps guessing these names. And they film it one way and film the other, and then at the end, as she lets go of their relationship between her and Desi, she also kind of lets go of the choice on the show of her recognizing Ricky when he comes in the set as well. Yeah, I just found that sort of thing just to be like very eye rolly in this movie, and I think it's just that Sorkin covers some really interesting topics. Like this was something I never would have looked into myself. It made me kind of look into the history of Lucille Ball more, but just overall, I just felt like this did not work the way I hoped it would. So, uh, better days ahead, I'm sure, for Aaron Sorkin. He doesn't really have anything listed right now as a next movie. I'm seeing here if he has a show on the horizon because
Doesn't sound like it. He's
yeah,
been pretty busy, so not surprising.
for sure. Um, we'll be talking about it more. Any awards ramifications from this, you think?
It sounds like Kidman's definitely in play here. Wouldn't be my first choice, but yeah, that seems to be where the campaign is heading here. And I don't think it's Sorkin's strongest screenplay either, but he's always a threat in that category too, given his reputation. So keep an eye on that.
Definitely the sort of thing that the Oscars usually like, stories about these sort of Hollywood figures. Dave, why don't we move on to something that feels like it's going to be getting a lot more awards love, which is The Lost Daughter, just premiered on New Year's Eve, I believe,
Yep.
on Netflix. Maggie Gyllenhaal's directorial debut. Olivia Colman, the star, the pretty much the movie, in a lot of ways. I guess there's a couple other actresses that get some time here, but really this is Olivia Colman show. Novel by Elena Ferrante as the source material for this. Premiered at Venice back in September, getting a lot of love. Won numerous awards, been nominated for numerous awards at these film festivals. Didn't totally catch me the way I thought it would. Now I was a little bit surprised because I think Colman's great in this. I think there's some other really good performances, but didn't totally catch me the way I hoped it would. Did you feel the same way about The Lost Daughter?
I did. I never watched the trailer. I didn't really know much about what was going on with this. I guess my only connection to it is, as you said, it's an Elena Ferrante novel. HBO is adapting the Neapolitan novels currently with My Brilliant Friend. So I've been exposed to the Ferrante storytelling a little bit, but still didn't really know what to expect here. And, it's really more of like a psychological thriller than anything else. And I guess that's just not really what I was expecting, and like there's a tension in the film and there's conflict, but it's not really what you think it's going to be. And it didn't totally grab me either. On the other hand, as you said, Coleman's still really great, on track for her third acting Oscar nomination in the past 4 years. And oh, by the way, she just won an acting Emmy for The Crown. Like, really untouchable as far as actresses go right now. She's just on an incredible heater. And I think she's really great in this, but like, it's one of those more moody, reserved performances and characters that you kind of got to chew on it for a while to, I guess, come up with your opinion.
Yeah, and I think it should be noted that this is a story that's truly about motherhood, and it might make sense that two males talking about this may not be able to connect with the story the way that a female may, because we are not able right now to be mothers,
or even a current mother specifically.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that I think probably speaks on different levels to people who are mothers, or have children. Maybe even that might be a way you can access this a bit, because it really, I think, tells a story about Lita, who's played by Olivia Colman, and just how motherhood never really fit for her and was very wearing on her, and she summarizes it well in the last scene between her and Nina, played by Dakota Johnson. She's just an unnatural mother, not really ever what you would think of, and that's kind of portrayed as she experiences this like getaway, this holiday as a professor to do some writing in Greece. She encounters Dakota Johnson, who's a young mother herself and seems to be struggling with her daughter's frequent needs and just not a lot of support from her husband. And she sees a lot of herself in Nina, and as she kind of grapples with her own past, abandoning her children for 3 years, while she went and pursued a relationship with Peter Sarsgaard's character, Professor Hardy, and kind of lived her own life. It is more of a psychological thriller. It is more of a like trying to, I think, grapple with guilt and pain, but also maybe like the lack of guilt and pain that comes from things. It's a very like murky story that I think like you said, you have to kind of sit and chew on a lot, and just kind of left me not super compelled, but also I think impressed with Colman kind of it feels like she has a lot bubbling underneath the surface throughout this movie, and is saying a lot without saying a lot at times. And as always, just impressed with her, but otherwise, didn't really grab me.
Right. Yeah, it's notable that it's not like the most showy, flashy Colman role of late. This is not the favorite from Yorgos Lanthimos, right?
Right.
But just shows another side of her acting ability, that she can still deliver powerful performance in a different light. I thought Dakota Johnson was almost unrecognizable for the beginning of the movie. Like, I was watching it, and I was like looking at her when you finally like get like more of that FaceTime, and then I like something clicked in my mind. I was like, oh right, Dakota Johnson's in this movie. That must be her. And then like, oh, now I see it. Yeah, that's her. I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that's cool. But shout out to my dude Paul Mescal, Normal People alum, just chilling in here. Happy
Just
to see him.
macking all up and down
Yeah.
Greece.
Now, not a European, and not don't live in Europe, so I don't know how realistic is it for Irish people to work in Greece in the summer. Not exactly the closest place to have a summer job. I don't know.
Yeah, just gonna go be a lifeguard in Greece at this resort. I don't know. I'm not sure how like those resort jobs
You
work.
couldn't have done like France or something, like the other side of the Mediterranean. I don't know.
You know who else funny. I thought get some really good shine in this is Jessie Buckley, who plays young Lita in this. And the scene where, I mean, there's a lot of scenes of her looking exasperated and frustrated as her children are constantly looking for attention from her to take care of her, and she's trying to also work her way through grad school and navigate all this stuff. But the scene where they have they're at a vacation house and they have these two travelers come in and they spend a day with them, I think is just a really captivating scene in this, because not only do you kind of see Buckley as young Lita at first judging these people for their lifestyle, and one person abandoned, I think the husband abandoned his children, and she was kind of like, oh, how could you do that? But then slowly coming to that realization, like, maybe this actually is what I want to do. And like just the way that she plays that scene, finally like asks the female traveler, like, are his daughters okay? And she's like, he has boys. Like, like you just kind of can like see like the wheels spinning there and where it's going. And I just thought it was really good looking. Obviously we saw her last year, and was it 2 years ago now? Man, it had to have been last year, right? In the that other psychological thriller, Jessie Buckley.
Chernobyl?
No. She was in
Wild
that
Rose
movie.
She was in something. She's been like, I'm thinking of ending.
I'm thinking of
Charlie
ending.
Kaufman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Charlie Kaufman. It's that was a movie that I'm probably never going to go back to, but is very memorable to me. And I think this is another great look for her. So,
she's on the rise for sure. Great. Yeah. Also, Dagmara Domanicic as the aunt figure, I believe, to Dakota Johnson's character, like the matriarch, I guess, of that large family that kind of interrupts Lita's vacation on the beach. Really memorable, I think. Really exact characterization of that kind of person in terms of when they're polite and when they're rude, stuff like that. These people are supposed to be from New York, from the city, so it felt familiar to me. This kind of stuff. that was amusing. Yeah, I guess for me, just overall, like, the reason I find The Lost Daughter just a little distant is the stuff with the doll. Like, why she takes the doll is never really answered, and she doesn't really know why. Lita doesn't really know why she took the doll either. And for me, just why that's so abstract and vague is kind of what lost me.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that fully either. It seemed like she just kind of wanted the child to be difficult for the mom, to like perpetuate the pain that she went through. Seems like she's a very like petty person in that sense, but I don't know. Yeah, it definitely feels. I thought for a while it was going to be that she wanted to like fix the doll up and make it perfect, and then like be the hero, even though she was really the person that caused the pain, type of thing. But really, it didn't turn out that way at all. So, I don't know. Anyways, I mentioned that this is getting a lot of buzz at awards or at film festivals, getting a lot of awards there. Maggie Gyllenhaal potentially in the best director conversation. I think that's a stacked field. I think
Yeah.
adapted screenplay probably feels likely.
Yeah.
What else? Colman?
Yeah, that's a good call. Coleman, yeah, definitely. Uh, some of the other award bodies, first feature, Maggie
Hmm,
G, perhaps the winner for a lot of
yeah.
those kind of awards. I guess kind of makes sense that she would become a director after playing someone who becomes a director for a few years on The Deuce. Cool to see. Also, Peter Sarsgaard's her husband, so nice to see that
Oh,
creative synergy happening in work.
the
But yeah,
Sarsgaards, man.
yeah, I would say screenplay and Coleman acting are probably the most likely for Oscars.
Yeah, I agree. Why don't we move forward to something else that this grabbed me a lot more, but has not grabbed a lot of people in the way that they expected. Don't Look Up. Adam McKay's newest movie dropping on Christmas Day. This has like a 56 or something like that on Rotten Tomatoes. Really has, I think, divided critics. It's obviously a stacked cast led by Leo and J Law, but Kate Blanchett, Jonah Hill, Meryl Streep, Timothy Chalamet, a lot of big names in this, as there typically are with Adam McKay films. Dave, my first question, probably the most important one: why did the Colonel charge them for the free snacks? But in seriousness, um, what do you make of the mixed reception to this? Why is this hitting with some and not with others?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting to think about. And there's a lot of discourse that I find really frustrating around Don't Look Up overall. And a lot of that has to do with just the relationship between art and criticism. We can get to that. But I would say Don't Look Up has a lot of characters and not a lot of subtlety. And
No.
that's not for everyone, you know? It's really funny to see a lot of people say too, so it didn't work for me, but I liked it more than Vice. I thought Vice was way more intelligent than Don't Look Up, to be
Yes.
honest. Like,
Yeah.
Don't Look Up is kind of just like holding up a billboard with a message on it. And once you read that message, they never erase it and put a new message on. There's nothing actually being said in a profound manner in Don't Look Up. And on the other hand, it's not like a dynamite comedy the way Adam McKay used to make his bones when he still was cool with Will Ferrell. So it doesn't really, to me, serve either master. So it's just kind of like a mixed thing in the middle. I find it broadly entertaining just because I like seeing all of these people together doing stuff. But I think it really misses the mark for what it's trying to achieve.
I think I might have liked it a bit more. You know, because I think what McKay was really going for with this, and if you listen to a few of his interviews, he's pretty straightforward, which is like, obviously the comet in this is a metaphor for the climate crisis. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're even aware of the climate crisis, why would you not just be making this the number one issue in your life moving forward? Which I think he captures a lot of the absurdity around the politics and around the mental gymnastics that people do around the climate crisis in this. I think he captures that well, if not, but not subtle, like you said. A lot of it is very overt and just very like ridiculous. Um, but I think that the film is pretty like most McKay films are. It's very entertaining to me, and it just kind of held my attention really well. And like you said, you're seeing a lot of actors doing fun things. I think anytime you get Leo leading something, you're pretty much going to be like sucked into it. Even like The Revenant, which was like to me a lot tougher to watch than something like this because it just wasn't super entertaining. I like seeing Leo just be ridiculous and go on this crazy journey as like a professor who becomes famous and starts an affair with Kate Blanchett. But yeah, I think the critiques of it not being totally a comedy, not being very subtle, not really being a doomsday movie, like it doesn't really check a lot of boxes, but I think it still works somehow. If that makes sense.
I'll say I like The Revenant a lot more than this. I like The Revenant. Revenant's underrated now.
Yeah, it is.
No,
It definitely is underrated, but it's just not like a fun film to rewatch to me.
yeah, sure. I guess my thing is it seems like Adam McKay, who's been a little punchy about the reception too. Adam McKay, like, you want a fucking lollipop because you said the climate change is a big deal? Congratulations, dude. Like, that doesn't make you smart. Like if
True.
anything, like, it's so simple. It's so basic. Like, I'm someone who reads Bloomberg Green all the fucking time. I'm very serious about the climate crisis and environmentalism in general. But like, this doesn't impress me. So as a film, if it's not going to be super impressive from a message standpoint, I like it to be funny. It's not really that funny. Or I like it to just be broadly watchable with compelling actors, which I think it is. So what's really annoyed me though about this is there's all these people that are like, it's like, but that's the point. The point is that people don't pay attention. How, all these people criticizing it. It's like, you just don't take it seriously. It's like, no, actually, it's just called fucking film criticism, you idiots. And you can criticize something that's about an important issue.
Oh,
And
sure. Yeah.
there's been some galaxy brain people about this movie that's really annoyed me. But I think it's broadly entertaining. I thought Cate Blanchett and Tyler Perry on like the infotainment type of view setting, I thought they were really great. I actually really liked watching Leo lose his mind a little bit. I actually like that brief interlude where he's like clapping back at people on the message boards in like a really earnest, serious way. That was smart. In general, great to see Jennifer Lawrence back after a break she chose on her own accord. That was great. I thought Jonah Hill awesome as like a Don Jr. type stand in there. I thought Meryl was kind of okay as like a Trump figure, nothing fancy. Rylance as a Jobs, Musk, tech billionaire figure, okay. Chalamet doesn't really have a whole lot going on. There's a whole lot to do in this. So like, the cast though is obviously really impressive. But I just have a hard time like giving the movie points for saying climate change is a problem and people don't pay attention. It's like, and is that all you have to say about it? Because if that's all you have to say, then you didn't really say anything. That's how I feel about it.
I think it's I I think I don't have the data. This is like a funny thing to say about this. I think but I don't have the data to say if I could give them points for it or not, because I don't know how many people that typically would choose not to engage with climate content or climate crisis information are actually engaging with this and being like awoken or something like that. I do think there's something to a movie that obviously is not explicitly saying this is the climate crisis, but pretty overtly the metaphor is about climate crisis. Maybe will suck some people in who wouldn't typically engage with this. It might take something away, but yeah, I agree. I don't think on the surface just making a movie about the climate crisis is something to get credit for.
I also think it's treatment of the media, and if that's like comment on the media and stuff, I think it's like overly simplified and not really spot on. Like, if the world was ending in 5 fucking months, you bet your ass that is the lead story of every news program for 5 fucking months. What are you talking about? Have you not seen how we handled the pandemic on the news for 2 years? Like that's just an inaccurate read in my opinion. And this movie was formed pre-pandemic and kind of tweaked once the pandemic happened. But I also thought that was kind of like, that's just like not what would happen. And you're actually trying to present this as what happens today and why that's bad, but I didn't think that was right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think that's right. I think the more accurate portrayal would be how like the White House was telling certain news stations to put certain stories up and then other stations were putting other ones. And I can't recall if they did that. I think there might have been something where it was like, this is the headline on all the other ones. And then one station had like some stupid headline. But I definitely think that some of it is oversimplified. I also just, I think that's a bit surprising for McKay, who, when you look at something like The Big Short or even like Vice, I think he told some pretty complicated, nuanced things pretty well. I think it's hard with something like the climate crisis, and this is, like you said, a very broad, sweeping movie that is touching on a lot of aspects of the crisis and how we got here. To maybe be super nuanced with every aspect of it, because if you even think about like the fact that they're dealing with a Meryl Streep like president, Donald Trump like president in this, they don't even get into like how a person like that got into power and how those
Mm,
sort of supporters may be driving a bit of the lack of people wanting to engage with this kind of climate or
yeah,
comet crisis stuff. I don't know. It's
totally.
it's hard, but I thought the movie overall was pretty watchable. So
Yeah.
um,
Oh, I think it's watchable for sure. Um, it's I'm actually interested in very interested in McKay's next film, which is going to be at Apple about Elizabeth Holmes and the Theranos scandal,
yeah,
starring Jennifer Lawrence. I think that type of story lends itself to McKay's sensibility. McKay clearly is someone who's more focused on doing slightly more serious material, even if he tries to you know, take the air out of the room sometimes still a little bit with some comedy. He's clearly interested in more serious stuff. But I think the Theranos story uh, is a good fit for him. And in general, I'm just really happy to see J Law getting back in the swing because she still is really great. She just wasn't picking great roles before she slowed down for a little bit there. Um, and
yeah, and
also, of course, we
obviously,
have Winning Time coming out soon on
yes,
HBO, the Showtime Lakers show in March. So we'll be getting plenty of Adam McKay soon. And
yeah,
oh yeah, and also just shout out Timothy Chalamet again. Not really much of a role with this, but he did work with Adam McKay, Wes Anderson, and Denis Villeneuve in 2021. Really big year for him.
yeah, pretty good for our guy Timothy. Uh, I don't see this getting much awards buzz. Do you?
I don't know about that, man. It's
You
being
think so?
pegged as something getting nominated for Best Picture.
I think that'd be tough.
Yeah, so I think the way it seems to be going is it would probably be nominated for Best Picture, maybe some other stuff. Probably is not going to win much of anything.
Mhm.
Leo, J Law, they're not really in the race for acting. So, it's not my pick. It's not in my top 10. Spoilers for next week, but it seems to be going that way because the Academy has liked McKay quite a bit the past two films he made. Remember, Vice also had a bit of a polarizing reception, but still got like 8 nominations. So keep
True,
an eye out for this, honestly.
man. That I think as we talk about our movies of the year, I mean, I haven't made my list quite yet. I definitely am starting to narrow it down. I don't see this cracking my top 10, maybe top 20, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if it got a Best Picture nom, that'd be kind of a tough pill to swallow. Anyways, let's talk about something that I expect to get a lot more awards buzz, which is the Tragedy of Macbeth, which I did not see yet, but our guy Dave putting in the hours for y'all, going to the movie theater, checking out Denzel Washington behind the camera and in front of it for the Tragedy of Macbeth. Dave, what'd you think of this movie?
Yeah, so the Tragic of Macbeth is coming out on Apple TV Plus on January 14th and got a Christmas Day release in like 700 theaters. So just wait out for Apple. It'll be there. Not actually directed by Denzel. This is directed by Joel Cohen of the Coen
Right.
brothers, without his brother Ethan. First feature film without the brother. Kind of ironically, Ethan is shifting back to theater, and meanwhile, his brother Joel is adapting a famous theatrical play without him. Either way, it's just Joel Cohen. And I was really impressed with this. I think in general, the most probably interesting conversation here is just like how we think about Shakespeare in 2021, 2022. Um, Obviously, Macbeth in particular, I believe, has been adapted 25 times, I believe is the count. Really famously, Polanski, Orson Welles, Kurosawa. You had the really gritty Michael Fassbender one about 5 years ago. You had the Florence Pugh breakout role in Lady Macbeth. People know Macbeth, right? It's probably the second or third most famous Shakespearean tragedy with Romeo, Juliet, and Hamlet. I think that's the big three, I'd have to say.
Yeah.
And Macbeth I think definitely the darkest of the three. Like Romeo and Juliet, dark ending, but there's some fun stuff going on in the beginning. But Macbeth's pretty darn dark, right? And what I really appreciated about Joel Coen's version of this is it's really stripped down, really minimal, and really just the essentials of the story of the theme. You'll notice when you watch the movie is that it's shot on a backlot. This is all shot on set, and yet it all just really works because you have this really precise staging and lighting, and obviously stark black and white and gray color. And the cinematography just really, I think, really sucks you in, even though you can tell these are really like specific, sparse sets, and kind of keeps that theatrical feel of something that people will see you usually see on stage, but still giving it a cinematic quality. And I think that's just a cool way to do it, because if you're gonna adapt something as rapidly adapted as most of Shakespeare has been, at least do something different, do some kind of spin, right? And there's definitely a spin with the tragedy of Macbeth. I think that's really cool. I think part of that, obviously, Denzel Washington playing a grayer, older Macbeth character, given that Denzel's like 66 or however old he is. And I think Denzel, once we get towards the later stage of the story, Macbeth becomes more manic and crazed. Denzel's like, really, really belting it out. You know what Denzel sounds like when he emotes, and he's doing that, of course, in iambic pentameter. So I really thought he was good as Macbeth. Frances McDormand as Lady Macbeth, bit of a different speed, honestly. Like a bit more understated, a bit more quiet, but she still kind of captures the character and like the motivations that the two of them have as they take the throne and all that. So I like the two of them together. I think the biggest scene stealer though is Corey Hawkins as Macduff. Second time this year, obviously stole the scenes in the Heights as well. But
Yeah.
Corey Hawkins was really phenomenal in this, and also Alex Hassel as Ross was really good. Alex Hassel was recently seen as Vicious in Netflix Cowboy Bebop. Not a character I really cared for in terms of that interpretation, but Alex Hassel does have a strong reputation as a theater performer, and it showed in the tragedy of Macbeth. He has those really like expressive big eyes, but just he can really like chew on the script in I think a really awesome way. He was phenomenal. And lastly, Catherine Hunter, maybe the performance of the film. She plays all three witches and is just kind of spellbinding the way she like contorts her body and stuff to be the witches. And they do kind of like some vocal dubbing to give her voice like the sound of three voices together and stuff. They'll do visual effects to like she'll be standing there, and then you look in the reflection and there's three which figures there and stuff. Walter is or sorry Catherine Hunter is really impressive as the witches, and like when you get the uh cauldron scene, toil and trouble stuff like this, it's what but I think it's just done at a high level because again, like all that staging, all that lighting, all that's like just really engaging stuff. So I guess it's like hard to like be like super like celebratory about something so familiar like Shakespeare, but on the other hand, like I don't know, Shakespeare is still super fucking relevant. Like it's a big
Yeah.
part of Station 11 on HBO right now, one of the best shows currently airing. So, and on the other hand, like Macbeth, definitely a conflicted protagonist, very familiar to protagonists we see in other Coen Brothers films. So everything really, I think, kind of all makes sense and coalesces here. So I definitely recommend The Tragedy of Macbeth when it comes out on Apple TV Plus at the end of next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it as well. Dave, what's your theory on Shakespeare? Do you think he was one guy who wrote all these?
It's a great the authorship of Shakespeare is a phenomenal thing to dive into.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great question. I think he wrote most of it. Maybe had some help on the side, but I largely credit the man. Yes. What about you?
You know, I think I might subscribe more to like it being multiple people. I also came across a similar theory about um, Socrates, and if all of his theories, if he was actually a person.
Philosophy.
There's been apparently no census that's ever been found to identify Socrates as a person. So there's a theory that Socrates was like a joke among philosophers at the time, that like if they had a theory or they didn't know who to attribute it to, they said, oh, Socrates said this, but they never actually had a person that lived. It's pretty interesting stuff. It's a fun debate to dive into, but more than likely Shakespeare probably wrote most of these. I think you're probably right.
Also, shout out Harry Melling as Malcolm. Harry Melling, Dudley Dursley back in the day, but has really, I think, made a name for himself as a character actor, supporting actor, like in Buster Scruggs and Queen's Gambit recently. Another memorable performance from him. He's honestly really good. And I just want to ask you, like, how do you like Shakespeare, like the iambic pentameter of it all? Like for me, like watching the film, watching people like Denzel and Hawkins and Alex Hassel and Mcdormand, watching them just like spew iambic pentameter at like normal talking volume. It's a lot to like process. I think watching Shakespeare is a little harder to follow than it is to read, right? And like I really liked learning it in school because you could sit with it and analyze it and really talk about it. But like watching something like perform for you in real time, I feel like can be a bit challenging at times. Like there's times when I'm watching and I'm like, fuck, I really don't know what you just said, and like I don't have the ability to reread that sentence, But like thematically, once you actually understand what's going on, it's Shakespeare. It's always so brilliant.
Yeah, I like listening to it or watching it. I agree. The experience for me can be a little bit like, I don't know if I totally jive with this, but I think once you do know the material and once you like either know the storyline or have read it yourself, I think it definitely is a lot more engaging. I don't really like get into a lot of Shakespeare, like just in like my free time. I think my dad actually growing up watched a lot of Shakespeare. I think there's Kenneth Branagh Macbeth from back in the day that he really liked.
He did Othello as well.
So maybe it was Othello, but he really like watched that a lot, and I never really got into it with him. But I'm excited to see this one. I think the Denzel, Francis McDormand of it all is what pulled me in more so. But Shakespeare, I mean, if you don't appreciate him, I mean, you at least have to acknowledge his influence. It's undeniable. So get with that iambic pentameter, bro. Do it. Dave, we're gonna wrap up there. What we got for next week?
So we'll be doing our best movies of 2021 at last. Excited to do that, but there's also a lot of other fucking stuff already, despite being the second week of January. This is not typical. Alas, HBO kicking it off with The Righteous Gemstones Season 2 and Euphoria Season 2. The Weeknd releasing a new album, Dawn FM, this Friday. Blinding Lights has only left the chart in like less than 6 months, and he's already got another album coming. Huge power move from him. And also The Tender Bar, Ben Affleck, is on Amazon. And Ollie Alexander's Years and Years is releasing an album too, which I'm excited about. So I think that's a lot of notable stuff coming out. And we'll still be talking about all our movies too. So 2022, getting it rolling.
Yeah, look at us actually having some stuff to talk about in January. Feels good.
Look at us.
Feels good. Anyways, we'll catch you next week.